But it sounds like and looks like they're not going to do anything about it.
Well, look, this whole thing has been a farce from day one when the two brothers are joking about the situation while the governor brother is causing the deaths of thousands of Americans. So CNN has demonstrated a remarkable lack of transparency throughout this process and even a callous disregard for human life. Now, to be fair, Chris Cuomo and his brother, probably neither of them would have the jobs that they have were it not for their famous last name. So, of course, CNN has traded on that name and that relationship and access, throughout having Chris Cuomo on as an anchor. And so now they're hard pressed to sort of punish him for doing something that they've sort of tacitly winked at throughout this time. I mean, it would have been obvious to, for example, any ethics manager or general counsel of some other media network to issue a memo or a warning to Chris Cuomo regarding coverage of his brother and regarding not sort of interfering with or spinning that in some way, which is obviously what he did. So now let's see if there's accountability or not for the cover-ups and the lack of fair coverage and the distorted presentation of this whole situation on CNN. I'm not holding my breath.
So, and according to reports, so Chris Cuomo told his brother to not resign, and Governor Cuomo apparently instructed surrogates to attack and defame those who came forward with their stories. And Harmeet, keep in mind, I'm sure you followed this closely, Governor Cuomo and Chris Cuomo are the biggest advocates for Me Too, and they believe all women, no matter what, but as long as those women are accusing Republicans. So they've been using that for a political tool for a long time. And I think both you and I have been on many segments discussing how the Democrats were using the Me Too as a political weapon, especially during the Justice Brett Kavanaugh hearings, as you may recall. And those of us who defended him, a lot of people were smearing us. And I've been consistently for due process. But it's just fascinating to see these guys who once believed all women, no matter what, doesn't matter the case, you just believe them, all of a sudden don't want us to believe Governor Cuomo's accusers.
Yes, completely. And it's interesting how even the Me Too movement itself sort of suddenly dropped off a cliff when Tara Reade began accusing now President Joe Biden of sexual assault. So I think Democrats' outrage is very selective on these issues. But what's not selective, I think, is the outrage on both sides of the families of people whose relatives have died through Andrew Cuomo's negligence or worse. And now, with his book and everything else happening, I think that we may begin to see criticism from different quarters than the usual suspects. But, even back to Chris Cuomo, his network did not do a good job of covering his own transgressions with respect to being sick and infected with COVID, breaking quarantine, and traveling across county lines to his other home. All of this has been swept under the carpet. So there's a significant stench coming off of CNN with respect to the Cuomo brothers.
Yeah, Chris Cuomo emerged out of the basement for the first time, but it actually wasn't the first time, as you pointed out. In fact, he got in a scuffle with a biker in the Hamptons who was liberal too, but he was wondering why Chris Cuomo was out if he had been diagnosed with COVID. So yeah, a lot of questions, no answers. And you were talking about Chris Cuomo's book on so-called leadership that came out during the pandemic. He's made some $5 million off of it so far. And so people are questioning it, are you okay with having a book about leadership when thousands of elderly people died in the nursing homes under your watch because of really terrible decisions? And these decisions that were made, it's not like you have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that it was a bad idea. You don't put COVID-infected patients with the most vulnerable people.
Well, of course. I mean, look, what we're seeing here is a pattern with respect to book publishing. Hunter Biden's book, Andrew Cuomo's book, they have very low sales, very high advances. It almost looks like some kind of a, payoff in a way for being who he is. I think somebody pointed out that, if you look at the book advance compared to the number of elderly New Yorkers who died, it's about $100 a person, and the same number for the number of books that sold. So it's a pretty extraordinary mathematics there, and a shocking lack of self-awareness by the governor and the people around him. And look at his brother, a top anchor on a top national news network, spinning for him on the dime of his, company's payroll. So it is going to be interesting to see whether CNN makes any changes or reflects any self-awareness. Yesterday, one of their reporters put out a tweet saying that that people were shocked internally about this. How could they be shocked? I mean, literally, these two brothers have been carrying out this farce on television, and it's been commented on around the world for a year now. So nobody who still works at CNN should be shocked that these are the ethics and the values of that organization.
Definitely. I wanted to play a clip for you. It's Chris Cuomo's reaction to the Supreme Court agreeing to hear a challenge to Mississippi's abortion law. Roll tape.
Legally, the issue is fetal viability. When does what is inside a woman become a person with rights under the law? You would think we would have impaneled experts on a special commission by now to see what the science says, right? But we don't seem to have the intellectual curiosity about this issue because it's not really about science. It has become a culture war. It's a political lever to use as a distraction from policy and solving problems, to allow people to get up in their religion and their righteousness over any sense of what science suggests. Though medical capabilities may be moving the point of viability well short of what it was assumed to be in 1973 with Roe v. Wade. So you'd think some of the proponents of harsher measures would want the science involved. Most Americans want the court to uphold Roe v. Wade, which found women have liberty over their own body as a right to privacy, a privacy right under the 14th Amendment. 62 uphold, 24 overturn. But again, it's not about science or consensus. It's about dividing lines, legislating to the far right, white fright vote.
A lot to unpack there, but he also went on to say pro-life is pro-racism, which actually, no, if you think of the origins of abortion in general and the founder of it, Margaret Sanger, it was eugenics and that she was targeting minorities. So he wants to not discuss that. Of course, they never talk about that. And when he talks about, woman, your body, your choice, but like a baby in the womb, that's not your body. That is a person, a baby.
Right. We have had a lot of decisions from the Supreme Court over the history of our country that, in retrospect, we look back on in shame. We have the Dred Scott decision. We have the Korematsu decision. We have Buck versus Bell. So we've imprisoned American citizens of foreign origin ancestrally. We have sterilized people with low IQs, and we have kept citizens and kept Americans enslaved. And those were all popular at the time, if you took a poll. So luckily, our constitutional rights and our law is actually not dictated by CNN polls. And science is what it is. And so, I think that we're going to find that over time, as science has evolved and Americans have begun to understand more about the origin of life, actually reversing Roe versus Wade and respecting the sanctity of life has become more popular, particularly among younger Americans, yes, who are educated in science. Look, throughout the history of time, powerful men have taken advantage of women and have been in favor of hushing it up through abortion. So every time I hear a powerful man talk about how it's about science or, mocking pro-life people, think about one's own lifestyle and what their interests are. And so I think that it's important to step back. We have some incredible scholars in the Supreme Court right now, and this may be a time. And by the way, the case that the court took up is not a case that reverses Roe versus Wade. It is a case about whether the state can limit abortions even in situations pre-viability. Now, Roe versus Wade made up this viability standard. It isn't in the Constitution. It isn't in science per se. It's made up by judges. And so I think it is ripe for review because there are many atrocities that can be perpetuated on a human fetus that are abhorrent to us, but maybe pre-viability. My client, David Dhillon at the Center for Medical Progress, has exposed experimentation on human fetuses with mice funded by the NIH. So we as a society have a right to draw those lines. We have a right to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. And that's the discussion that's being had right now in state houses throughout the United States and at the Supreme Court.
Yes, and just to be specific, it's so the Mississippi case would prohibit abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. And you think of just of how fast the fetuses and babies develop in the womb, and what abortion actually really is. And no one ever wants to go into the details and look at that. It's really tragic. Well, Harmeet, thank you for breaking this all down. I appreciate you.